so many people are doing the same thing as me. Whether that's true or not, whether the world is actually saturated, I don't know what you do. I don't know what you think that you do, but I hear that all the time. It's saturated. There's no opportunity. This all comes down to a scarcity mindset. But today, what we're going to do is try to reverse that scarcity mindset, because thinking that it's scarcity is what makes it scarce. So what if we turned our focus away from scarcity and onto abundance by actually talking about the things that are really great and getting our focus back onto that? So today I'm joined with Dre Maxwell, who is the coaching team lead for our online trainer mentorship. That's the highest level service that we provide. If you're interested in that, go to my Instagram, send me a DM that says mentor, or just go to onlinetrainermentorship.com, fill out the application. Today I'm joined by Dre Maxwell. Dre, you brought up this topic and immediately I was like, God damn, I love that. So what brought this up?
This comes up a lot in the coaching actually with the students, but there was a particular student where I'd really been pushing them to get outside of their network, make new connections, talk with the other coaches. And every suggestion that we had for the student was, but I'll lose clients to them.
But I'll lose clients to them. To who? Who were they worried that they'd lose clients to?
The most recent instance with it, I was pushing the student to do a collaborative post with another student in the group who had kind of a similar niche, but not exactly. And that was the fear of like, well, if we do this content together, I'll lose potential leads. I might lose clients to this person. Like, what happens if everybody goes there instead of bringing anybody new to me?
And so is that a common fear in working with other people, that attention will shift somehow from you to that person? And that attention, I guess, is scarce, right?
Yeah.
And so, if I only have a very small piece of pie and I give somebody else half of that pie, well, now I only have half of the pie. And I love pie as long as it's not cherry pie, because cherry pie is objectively the worst pie. It's not a bad pie. Like, if somebody were to give me cherry pie, I'd still eat it because it's still pie. But as far as pies go, I would still question why, if you could buy any pies, you would choose the cherry.
That's enough, John. I'm sorry, Drea, you were saying?
Okay, well, just to validate that, I agree. Cherry pie is the worst pie. So
it's the worst pie.
Oh my God!
Sorry.
Thank you.
Where am I now? How did I slip into this nightmarish hell of a podcast with two cherry pie et tu brute? I'm sorry.
Brute.
Go ahead, Dre.
Stab him in the nuts.
I didn't really mean it.
Et tu brute.
But no, that is often a fear with people of like, but they're in my network, and if I share this network, I'm going to lose half my network, instead of thinking it as like, now we have cross network, now we have more viewage now, because that's the thing you mentioned in the beginning of like it being oversaturated. You are not like any other trainer. You are different. You speak to different people. You believe different things. And by opening up that audience and working with other trainers, other colleagues, you open the opportunity for more people to see you and connect with who you are specifically and what you believe in.
I think, tell me if I'm wrong here. This is from my vantage point, which is so far from the level of your vantage point. So I might be totally off, and that's fine. But it seems like a lot of this stems from the issue that the majority of people that we work with have had tremendous success in person as well. Either they've owned a gym and now this is kind of them figuring out a way to get back some more time, or they were just successful in person. I mean, maybe for a couple of years, maybe for longer, right? And when you're successful in person, I mean, there is something to be said for there is an absolute number of clients that a local gym has access to. Depending on where you live, of course, that number might be bigger or smaller. If you live in a big city, there's more people, but there might also be more gyms. If you live in a smaller city or in, just outside of a city or whatever, there there might not be a lot of gyms, but there's also not a lot of people who live close to your gym or to your facility or wherever you are. And it's pretty clear that the majority of clients will never travel more than 20 minutes to go work out. Now, there are exceptions, but by and large, people won't travel for long term, more than 20 minutes. And so there's significant location bias when you work as an in-person trainer, right? Whether you're in a big city or a small city. And as a result, two things happen, right? Number one is you kind of just need to be the person that's convenient to get to in order to get a chance. And so you standing out and being different and letting your geek flag fly and your 1% uniqueness factor, whatever words I've given to it over the years, probably matters less than you just being a genuinely good as shit person who was just interesting to speak to and gets results for the clients, results in their eyes, in their opinion, not your definition of results, their definition of results, can be different. But also, there's only a finite number of people who live close to that facility. And so if you do work with another trainer, you probably haven't tapped that amount yet locally, but there is a chance that you could. I think that's am I far off that that's where this kind of scarcity approach comes from, maybe? And then when somebody goes online, of course, doesn't matter where you live.
I think there's an element of that for sure, because, especially like you said, depending on the size of the city and the size of the gym, like your avatar and your lead pool is who's in that gym, right? So your avatar becomes those specific clientele in that gym. Like you're kind of strapped into that.
Right.
But, and like you said, once you're, when you're talking to those people, you're talking to 100 people, to maybe 1,000 people, right? That's it. But when you're talking online, you're talking to now endless numbers of people, right? Hundreds of thousands of people. But it's still, I think that it still comes down to like collaborating with other coaches, whether it is in person or online, is still super important, because even just number one, sharing of ideas, like your geek factor, like like you've said, of like, they get to share ideas and teach each other things. They open up their own community, but then that opens up like a cross colleague referral network.
Yeah.
Because even in those gyms, I mean, I've worked with, I mean, even just as a client hiring coaches in gyms, I have switched from one coach to another because I liked the coach better. I liked their approach. They understood me better.
Yeah, you talked about the cross-pollination. I think referral networks have something to be said for this too, where, in person, there's a built-in referral network. Like everybody's kind of connected to other people locally. Online, there isn't. And so if you don't figure out a way to stand out and to be uniquely suited for somebody, every client that you're going to get is going to have to be independent of one another. There's no real reason for somebody to refer you. I think that has something to do with it also. So then how then, Drea, we're such fear-based organisms, our limbic systems, like our brain, I'm not going to talk in science terms, our brains are fucked up.
Yeah.
Like we're always going to be jumping towards fear. How in the world can we trigger that to think abundantly and focus on actually there's a lot of good stuff going on here? How do we do that?
Yeah. There a thing that I tell a lot of the students is, especially the ones that like they're fighters, they work with, people with jujitsu and things like that. It's like, okay, when your hands are closed, what can you do with those hands? Right.
Yeah.
You can only hit, right? And once you're in the process of it, it's very hard to open those back up. So you can't hold a lot when your hands are closed tight. But when you open your hands up and you put them together, you can catch a whole lot more than when you're really resistant and closed off, right? So I do like to think about it like that, of like being open and receptive is always going to bring more people in. And like you said, your uniqueness factor, you can still showcase that with working with other people, with doing collaborative opportunities. You can't make people work with you, whether they're in your network or not, but you can make them want to.
Right. Yeah, that analogy, because we do work with a lot of jujitsu people,
Yeah.
actually, surprisingly. I guess our people just like hugging. And you can't you can't hug other dudes while you're rolling around on the floor with them if your fists are closed, you know what I'm saying? Southern California. Um
Oh, the vegans are getting more irritated, John. Slow down, buddy.
I had somebody tell me on my Instagram the other day that they were unfollowing me because I was being disrespectful to vegans. Um, and a part of me wanted to respond, and then another part of me
Don't do it.
wanted to.
You tell them this isn't an airport. We don't announce
I know.
departures here.
I know. It's one of those where it's an opportunity to be like, no, you're the one being ridiculous. But I don't know. I decided not to.
Tell them about the meat from Saturday, John. John ate a ridiculous, to all the vegans out there listening, John ate a
Yes.
ridiculous, copious amounts of Brazilian meat. He
Some
invited me
Brazilian
to a dark
steakhouse.
room where Brazilian men shoved their meat in our face for probably 2 hours. I was wildly uncomfortable. I'm sorry,
And then they
please
gave us a
continue.
pineapple and a piece of cake. So,
Right,
like, what more do you want?
right.
Yeah.
Survival prize.
One of the things you said here in the notes that you sent me before, Dre, is don't skip over having a conversation with somebody you think won't be a potential lead. It isn't a waste of your time.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? I don't have much time.
Yeah, it's when you are so single-mindedly focused on is this person a lead or not, your blinders are up, right? Like you're
Yeah.
missing a lot of opportunity by acting like that. And when you are generous with your time and have a conversation with somebody, they feel reciprocal. They feel like the opportunity then of like, they didn't have to do that. I would love to be generous with my time. And you know what? I do know somebody that would be a really great fit to work with them. I'm going to tell them to go follow this page. I'm
Right.
going to tell them to go reach out.
I remember when I was starting to build back up my Instagram account, I had a conversation with Alex, who used to work with us. And I was telling him my plan. And like what a lot of people don't see is always the most important thing that happens. Like when you see somebody on Instagram that's built up a following that you admire, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost never because of their earth-shattering quality of content. It's likely some combination of two things. One is the stuff that they've done in the real world to earn some sort of a reputation, so that people, when people see the content, they say, "Oh, I think I know that person." Right, number one. But number two, it's all of the small conversations behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I told Alex that I was going to do is, and I had a very, so I was building back up. I was building up basically from nothing when I started. I mean, I had some followers, but it was more or less a dead account. I hadn't used it in a year or two. And I just said, I'm going to go out of my way to find accounts with 5,000 to 10,000 followers right now, because those are the accounts that I have access to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go on there, like the types of accounts that are right for me, like intelligent looking fitness professional people, basically. And I'm going to go onto their account and engage with them, and then send them a message and thank them for doing great work, if they're actually doing good work. And I'm going to start with 5 a day minimum. That's it. 5 a day. I don't even know if it took me 5 minutes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to engage on that person's thing, but I'm also going to look at the people who are engaging with their accounts. Because especially early on in the process of trying to build up any kind of social media following, whatever platform you're on, what you want is a high percentage of followers who engage,
Yeah.
to followers who don't engage. Now, as you get bigger, this starts to matter a little bit less. But at the beginning, and one thing I know to be true is people who do one thing do that thing in a lot of places. People who don't do a thing don't do that thing anywhere. So if you want somebody to engage on your Instagram, actually the best way to do it is not to figure out how to build the most engaging content. It's to make friends with people who already have shown a proclivity to engage. And so I went to these pages that had like 5,000, whatever, built a relationship with them because they're in and around the same point as me trying to grow, right? And then I went into their comments at the people engaging them. And those people often, maybe they had 5,000 followers, maybe they had less, but I did the same thing to those pages. And I sent them a follow and they followed me back. And then my page very quickly as a result, because I was the only person doing this to 5 people at a time every day, but 5 people over the course of a month is give or take 100 people. And some days it was 10, and some days it was 7, and some days it was 15, and some days it was 20. So over the course of 3 or 4 months, I probably have done this to 1,000 people. Well, what do you think happens to my account now? I've given all these other people value, but I've also been strategic in building up my audience of the types of people who already exhibit the types of actions that I want to happen on my page. And then you become like the person to go to.
I would add to that too then of that's the thing of, yes, the outbound like that is so important of the connections, but then it's continuing to engage with them once they're there. That's the other piece of it. We had one of our students, well, 2 of our students, one of the students had about 5,000 followers, and they were like, I feel like I've tapped the audience. I feel like there's nobody else engaging. And I'm like, great. How many of those people have you reached out to in your actual audience that are already there? And they were kind of like, oh, light bulb moment, and took the same strategy that you're talking about. Yes, had outbound, but then used the same strategy just in their own followers. Take 5, take 10 per day, reach out to them. Even if they're not engaging with the content, you've been following me for a long time. Just want to tell you I appreciate you being here. Yes. And from those conversations, that's where they snowballed. This one particular student I'm thinking of said to me, this person asked me a ton of questions in my DMs, I'm engaging with them, I'm answering them. They're never going to be a client. They're not my avatar. I'm like, great, bet you they know people who are. And they continued that conversation. And this now follower, who's now a raving fan follower, sent 3 referrals over.
Yeah. So give me more details, because I think I know who that was. I think we might have mentioned that example when it happened, right?
I think so.
It was a month or 2 ago, I think, because he was surprised by it. So what happened? So who was this person that they were interacting with? Like, first of all, we could say his first name. What does Paul do and what makes him unique? And then who was this other person who was engaging with him? Why was that person not a good fit? And what did they talk about?
So Paul works with, I want to say kind of like millennials, really like people in their like 30s and 40s who are really just trying to nail down basics and just do the things for themselves and figure out how to do it in the simplest, easiest way possible so that they actually, make some progress. And this person in their DMs, she was a much older lady. She was like 60s, 70s, just, grandma vibes. I love your content. You seem so nice. So then she sent her daughter over to the page and introduced them. She sent her son and then her son's wife over to the page, who were all exactly in his avatar. Perfect people, perfect examples of this. And they signed up with him, and then she continued to sing his praises, send people to the page. He's like, this one follower that I've never even gotten on the phone with has been a major revenue source just by spending a little time chatting with her in my DMs.
But how do you manage this? Because
I know,
like, I'm busy, like, and so, I guess I don't know, is part 1 of the answer, like, if you're asking this and you don't already have a lot of active conversations every single day, like, maybe you shouldn't be worried about it. But I would still worry about it. Like, what do you say to people who tell you they just don't have much time? Like, they got to be more focused.
Yeah. It's regardless of like their time. So obviously we talk a lot about time blocking and having time for this and having time for that.
Yeah.
But this particular thing, this is something that I suggest they time block into their day and to their week. I call it social on social, being social on social media. What a concept, right?
Right.
But even 15 minutes 3 times a week, just go through your followers, search through them. You don't have to keep scrolling through them, search through them. And then just like you said, it doesn't take a lot of time to just reach out and say hello, thank them for following. I like your content. I like the photo of your dog that you have on there, because everybody knows I care about our dogs. And then what you get back from it, it is like planting seeds, right? What you get back from it is so worth the time investment of 45 minutes per week. And if they feel like they don't have 45 minutes per week, I'm going to say that this is the same with like, while trainers are talking to their clients of like, their clients are like, well, I don't have 45 minutes per week to work out. Is it that you don't have time, or is it that it's not a priority?
There's this podcast that I've been listening to a little bit just about authorship, and it talks about kind of like nuanced topics, and some of the episodes are good, some of them are not very good, but one of them talked about time blocking. And of course, the issue with particularly nonfiction authors that write books is not dissimilar from the issue of any busy person who's trying to do things to actively get ahead but in doing things to get ahead of whatever your position is right now, you also have to do shit to maintain your position, and like that can just be a lot. And so they were talking about similar ideas like time blocking, because this episode was answer the question of like, okay, I get it. I need to be writing my book, but also I need to be building my platform for when my book comes out, my network of other authors so I can get blurbs and things like that. And then I also need to be making money today and doing my job or whatever it is. And then maybe in between that, I have a family and hobbies and care about my health and fitness.
A life, yeah.
It's multiple jobs. And the way that they voiced it, they used a term that I really liked. They called it literary citizenship. And so it was just a different way to kind of talk about the same thing as you were talking about, but it kind of made it click for me. And so that's why I'm bringing it up, like fitness industry citizenship. Like if you are going to be a citizen of the fitness industry, part of the rules of your citizenship is to actively participate and grow and support the industry that you've chosen to become a part of.
Yeah.
And it's the same with authorship. This idea of like, I'm going to take 30 minutes twice a week for literary citizenship. What does that mean? That means that the past book that I read, if I enjoyed it, I'm going to send that author a message to say thank you. You know how many people send me a message to say thank you for my book or for my emails or for my programs? Like, none. Now, does that mean that I haven't helped people? God, I hope not. It just doesn't happen. I send authors thank you notes all the time. Big authors, famous authors, authors whose name you would know right off of the top of your head. And you know what? Every single one gets back to me and is incredibly appreciative. Because nobody does it. Because nobody takes the time, because everybody's so busy in their own shit. And I consider that part of literary citizenship. Now, what do I gain from that? Well, now I have a point of connection. Now there's the beginnings of reciprocity. Now I kind of know this person. At least I've given them some good feeling. And then if I want to message them and ask them about something, whatever it is, at some point in the future, now I have that node to continue that relationship. I can respond to that email. And it's the same with interacting with people on social media.
Mm-hmm.
If I think that somebody has created a good piece of content and I don't know them, I will comment on that piece of content and say, I think you did a great job publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And then very often I will send them a message and say, yo, that thing, like, caught you, like caught you in the act of doing something good. Gotcha. Yo, you did something good there. I just want you to know that I noticed it. That's
John,
it.
may I offer 3 points at the intersection of this particular conversation?
Yes, in order of priority, ideally alphabetical, please.
Okay. So first off will be the angry old man. A.
Well done.
The angry old man, shit's hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do exceptional shit, I don't know where we got the idea that it should fit comfortably into the context of your existing life. It just doesn't. Yeah. You're doing a magic trick as a business owner. You're taking something that was fully in your head and birthing it into the physical universe. You're not supposed to have the time conveniently. There should be competing things going on. Shit's hard, right? You're doing something unusual to live in an unusual way.
Wait, let me fact check you for a second.
The idea.
Let me fact check you for a second. Drea, you're the only one here who's given both out of the three of us. Is it hard?
Yes.
Okay. When story checks out, please continue.
All right. And you made beautiful humans. Is that correct?
Yes.
But there was some effort involved.
It was worth the investment. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to L, which is alphabetically after A.
Yes.
L, the low-hanging fruit here is nobody does the stuff that Dre is informing you to do right now. John just confirmed it. John just said, I send things to authors. Nobody sends me anything. Nobody likes me. Right? It's the low-hanging fruit of interaction on social media.
Because that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. Am I not having an impact?
Shit.
Right?
Yeah,
do people not like me?
Give a shit.
Is it all going to end? That's what I'm thinking.
If you want attention, I think we misunderstand how badly everyone else also wants attention on social media. People are on social media to get attention, which is why you're failing to connect with humans, because you just want attention. Drea talks a lot about the megaphone that we use on social media. See, I listen to your stuff, Dre. I'm on top of it. So that's my L. It's really, really low hanging fruit to do this. And the next one is successful coaching. S.
Well done.
Right? A lot of the times, you're welcome, John. A lot of the times we put our effort into successful coaching instead of becoming a successful coach. And even though this might not be a conversion play, this may not get you a client, you're shifting your identity to being a successful coach instead of a coach who sometimes generates success. And successful coaches just do certain things. It won't play out immediately, but looking through the rearview mirror of my own car, 10 years doing this, there are certain things that I do, and the results of the effort are lapping me on the track now. Like, I'm running into the wake of my own effort. And most coaches don't get to that point because they're not willing to do things consistently that shift their identity from coach who's trying to have success to successful coach. Because if you can move from getting a win to becoming a winner, it changes the course of your career, particularly in this business where people just kind of don't want to talk to people unless they're talked to first. And that's the 3 things that I wanted to say.
Well, I love that, especially that last point, because I think it also falls under enjoyment, because you enjoy engaging with people. You enjoy talking to them. And that's the one thing a lot of trainers say to me when they move fully online. They're like, I miss that hour with my clients where I just talked to them. And it's like, yeah, because it was it was fun. You got to hear about their lives and you got to share things. This is where you get to have that enjoyment of building the business, is you get to still have those conversations. Don't close yourself off in this little room and, like John V, one of our coaches, who's in his basement, don't close yourself off. And there's lots of opportunity for you to still have those enjoyable conversations. You got to just have them.
To be a citizen.
Yeah.
Still of the industry, 100%. I mean, I do this selfishly for me still, because I want to geek out with the people who I enjoy being with. with people who I think are doing good work, who are showing up the right ways. That's why I do it. Now, that benefits me professionally too, of course. Anytime you can make somebody feel good. And I mean, this is like Dale Carnegie 101, how to win friends and influence people shit. Like, imagine everybody has a sign on their head that says, please make me seem important today. Please make me feel important today.
Right.
It's no different. Everybody on the internet is screaming at the top of their lungs, please, 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 please make me feel like I'm important today. That's why we do it. That's why we do it. Please give me attention. Mm-hmm. But you're also screaming the same things. And the way for you to get attention is actually to give other people attention. Fitness citizenship, literary citizenship. I love it. And then just like cool connections get made. I sent a message to an author, and I really enjoyed his book. His name's Robert Moore. He wrote a book called On Trails. And I didn't know whether I'd hear back because I've kind of been binging like solo explorer type books lately, but like modern explorer books. Cool. And this guy, and so a lot of the time, the people who write these books are like kind of by definition hermits. Like these are people who go off and hike for 5 months, in the wilderness, and then they, maybe write a book about it many years later. And so I didn't know that they'd get back, but he gets back to me, and I sent a message to my buddy Michael Easter. I was like, "Oh, you'll love this guy. You'll love his book. Not sure if you've seen it." He's like, he already blurbed my book. Like, we're already buddies. And then I mentioned who recommended the book to me in my original email to Robert, who was a good friend of mine, Alex Hutchinson, who wrote a book called Endure, who lives around the corner. So we spent some time together. And he said, when he responded, he goes, "Oh, I actually recently read Endure this past summer. I absolutely loved it." I take a screenshot. I send that to Alex, who I know is a fan of Robert. Like, this stuff happens, right? Now, I mean, I've made this connection between the two of them that they're both fans of one another's work in a similar field. Will anything come of that? I don't know, but it made Alex feel pretty damn good that day.
You just mentioned 2 super important things.
What's that? In alphabetical order, please. Ren nailed it. It doesn't have to be in alphabetical order.
I was going to say, because
Ren just puts up with my dumb shit all the time. You don't have to.
It's my function here. I know my role.
Function, what's your junction? Go on. Sorry.
That's not right, John. Stop it. Go ahead, Drea. Ruining another Gen X classic. I won't have it.
It falls under referrals and social proof, though, what you just said. Because the first one is the best way to get attention is to give attention. The best way to get a referral is to give a referral.
Ooh,
that's the best way.
Tell me more about that. I've never heard that before. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh,
That's
well, this
awesome.
is okay. So we've had a few students join BNI groups to like make networking connections, right, with local other business owners. The BNI groups are great because their whole premise is to run on referrals. Right. And one of the guys I told to join, he came back to me and he was like, "I haven't gotten a single referral out of this. I don't think this is worth my time." And I said, like, "Great. Let me ask you a question. How many referrals have you sent?" And he was like, "Well, 0. And I was like, "Okay, so do we feel like there could be a correlation here?
Interesting.
If we haven't sent any, that we haven't received any." And it was like light bulb. He was like, "Okay, you know what? One of the guys in the group actually does life insurance. I don't have life insurance. I'm going to set up a meeting with him and get some life insurance. It's something I should do anyways. I have kids. Let's do it." So we went ahead and did it. And 2 weeks later, he had 3 new bookings on his call booking link that he gave to the broker that he spoke to. All 3 of them came from this broker simply because he did the one meeting with the broker to talk about life insurance for himself. And right away, 3 referrals came back.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like that old Pitbull line. Ask for money, get advice. Ask for advice, get money twice.
I'm just so pleased that we're quoting Pitbull here. He is Mr. Worldwide. So.
The philosopher sage of the early 2000s. He didn't have to put a Band-Aid on his cheek to get attention. He was too good for that.
Are you throwing shade at Nelly?
I'm sure when
John.
I'm sure when Nelly hears this episode, he's going to be very upset about that.
He's going to be devastated by your
Going to be very upset
unfair
about that.
criticism.
How many times could you possibly have cut yourself shaving, Nelly? How many times?
Stop it, John. It's a little too hot in here.
But it's something that we're thinking about a lot with my book. So I told you before we started recording, I'm entering in the season now of heavy book promotion. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a busy next few months. Very busy next few months. And so I've hired on somebody to help me quarterback the launch. And one of the first things that we did is basically, and I'm not done yet, is basically both of us have just made a list of every single person we know. Not everybody we know, but there's some friends and family, and then anybody who has, any kind of a platform, or even if they don't have a platform, influence over their network, or anybody who works in a profession, like friends of mine who became realtors, for example, because realtors and people who serve dentists are two examples that came up yesterday, are like people who will really benefit from the Obvious Choice book, right? Or it's just like people who I just think would really love it. And so we have these lists now.
Hot lists, yeah.
That, is over 700 people long. Life is going to get really busy. Because every single one of these is going to get an individual message. If you think you're above doing individual stuff like this, you are not. Nobody is. You don't blast stuff out. If you want anything to happen, you got to make it happen. But how we're going to reach out to how we're going to reach out to a fair amount of these people is actually two ways. Some of them, we're actually going to pay for consulting with them. Mm-hmm. And so, there's some people who have influential networks, who have something that we feel like we could gain from learning from them. How do we use LinkedIn better to sell our book? How do we do this better? How do we do that better? We'll pay them for an hour of their time. Yeah. Learn from them, apply it. But guess what? Now they're also a part of the process of working on the book. Now they will probably accept a sample copy of the book. Now they'll share it and say, I helped work on this. The second, though, is other people just like asking them for advice on, instead of saying, hey, can you help this promote it? Say, whatever they're an expert in. Hey, I'm really, I wrote this book that I think a lot of real estate agents are really going to benefit from. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about kind of what some of the frustrations are with realtors acquiring customers. Man, could you make 20 to 30 minutes? Jump on the phone? Be good to catch up too. And I'm asking for their advice. It then becomes a much so tell me about the book. Right? Now you have an opportunity to do it. Pitbull was a sage ahead of his time.
Paying for time, for people's time, is so, I think it's something that people don't think of. I think it's so smart, though. One of our other students, Snej, she knows this photographer in California, this photographer that's photographed Lady Gaga and a whole bunch of celebrities. And she was telling me about them, and she's like, I wonder how they met them. I wonder how they got connected with them. I was like, well, why don't you book a photo shoot?
Yeah.
And she was like, I never would have thought of that. I'm like, twofold, right? Because you need content anyways. They're an amazing photographer.
Sure.
And then the best way to monopolize somebody's time, not to say it in that sense, but it kind of is, the best way to get their time is to pay them for their time and use their expert services.
All right. Hey, I'm curious. How'd you get to know whoever? Because they'll tell you.
I saw your shoot with this person. It was incredible. How did you facilitate that? That's amazing.
Yeah. And then when you're done, unsolicited, you send them a phenomenal testimonial.
Yeah.
Something that they're going to want to put on their website. That does two things. Number one, it's a huge benefit for them. Reciprocity. You've given them something, right? Immediately, you've given them multiple things now, but immediately afterwards. But then you're on the website, they do great work. Other people are going to go to that website who don't know you, who might have seen you, who might have heard about you at some point through something, and they see your face on that website, and they see your face on other people's website, and you're like, wow, this person must be important. They're on all these websites.
Social proof.
That's tremendous. That's so powerful, because people like to talk about themselves anyway. I can't imagine someone paying me and then asking me about me in one sitting. Like, that's like the ego nuclear bomb, right? I'm going to pay you for your time, and as I've paid you for this time, I'm going to show incredible interest in you at the same time. That feels like what a relationship must be like. I've never had the experience, but that's what it sounds like in the songs that I listen to by Taylor Swift.
Oh, there was that other song you were telling me about that you were a big fan of for the longest time too. How did it go?
What song was that? Is it the Spider-Man theme?
No, the thong, thong.
Oh yeah.
There was that one.
Because the dress was so scandalous, and I was like, I don't know if I can handle this.
Yeah.
And she was saying her thing like, "Who's the ish?" And John, she had a look in her eye. I swear it was so devilish.
Yeah, what was that look?
It was devilish, John. It was devilish. And she had all the.
Did you like it when your booty go?
I love the way her booty go.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well,
thank you, John. Drea, you were saying?
But I just want to pull back to something that you said before the booty talk. What a different way it is to network. Because John, what is your line that you always say of like, in a world where everybody is the same, in a world where everybody's similar, it's so easy to be different?
It's so easy to stand out where everybody just copycats everybody else.
Yeah.
It's so easy to stand out. I mean, if you do the same thing as everybody else in the same way, why would anybody pay attention to you? Yeah. It's so obvious when you say it, isn't it?
My follow-up line to that with students is always, if you say that you're different, you better damn well be different. And I feel like that's a way of standing out and being different. Is you can say it all you want, but it's in those actions that you're taking that show your audience, which then like comes back to the social proof aspect of it. Of number one, that's a great way to have social proof of giving testimonials for other people. And then even just what you mentioned too about, speaking to other authors, you took a screenshot of what somebody else said about somebody else's book and you sent it to them, right? That just in your own messages, coming back to Paul did that. He had that lady in his DMs where she asked him questions and he answered it. And she came back and said, that was such helpful advice. Yeah. He screenshot it and shared it. This is like comes back to maximizing that time of like, you're never just doing one thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got a question through the lens of student, because you do such a great job at helping us better understand the conversations portion of the 4 C's, particularly in the OTM process. And I know often the message comes across for students that don't solve problems in the DMs, but there is a differentiation between what Paul did, and he was answering questions for this person that wasn't his avatar, versus someone saying, yes, I'm interested in having a conversation. And then, what are your goals? What do you like to see happen in the next 3 or 6 months, or 6 months or a year? All I like to do is, well, let me tell you exactly how to do it in this DM. Yeah. That's what we're saying not to do. But can you just sort of differentiate that for the student who may feel like the messages are mixed? Because I understand what Paul did, but I also understand what you tell us not to do. How does that differentiate from your perspective?
Yeah, clarifying questions. This is such a good question, because that's Paul. Because Paul brought this conversation to me. He's like, she's asking these questions. She's not my avatar. I don't want to not give her my time. How do I balance this? And for me, I'm like, okay, well, ask her clarifying questions and see what you can actually answer in the DMs, and then send a lead magnet to her. You have lots of free resources. Why is she asking you these questions? What's going on here? And then go ahead and send her one of your free resources, or another resource that you know of, which is another way to, share cross content is to don't only share your own resources, share other ones.
Oh, yeah.
And from that free resource, from the guide that he gave her, that was where she came back of, that was so simple. That was so helpful.
Yeah. And
Does
if
that
if
answer?
you really think that it has to be your own thing, I will avert your gaze to the two most popular websites on the internet, Reddit and Google.
Yeah.
Right.
Neither of which make their own information. Their only job is to help you find what you're looking for from somebody else as quickly and effectively as possible. That is where
But
the true
Drea,
value lies.
so true. But Drea, isn't it super hard for me to offer some lead magnets that I didn't create if I never ever collaborate with anyone else?
It sure is, isn't it? If you're not
It's funny
sure
how that
what,
works.
yeah. If you're, well, nobody shares my lead magnets. Well, how, nobody shares my resources. Well, how many of other people's have you shared? And I mean, John, I think you mentioned this earlier in the conversation of like the information that you're sharing is not groundbreaking. It's not groundbreaking. So share each other's information of what other people are specialists in. And then they're very likely to share your information of what you are a specialist in.
It's interesting how that works.
Magic, isn't it?
Magic.
Magical.
Magic.
Magical.
I'm going to recommend another episode. This has been great, Drea. I'm looking forward to having you back more and more often because every time these are just fantastic. Drea is, of course, the coaching team lead for the Online Trainer Mentorship. That's my highest program where we help people in online fitness nutrition scale. And so if you are at all interested, intrigued, just want to learn more, whatever, send me a DM on Instagram that just says mentor, or you can just go to onlinetrainermentorship.com and just fill in the application. And we'll see if it's right for you. And we'll see if you're right for us too. In the meantime, I want to recommend you check out episode 267. This episode's name is The Warning Signs of Mediocrity. And I think what you'll find here is that actually the best way to learn is to learn from other people that we admire. And I think it goes in line with a lot of what we've been talking about this episode. So have a listen there. It was super tactical. Episode 267, The Warning Signs of Mediocrity. Thanks for listening. We'll talk soon.